She placed flowers on his grave every Sunday for 3 years, never once suspecting that her dead husband was alive, watching her from a black car parked just outside the cemetery gates. When a group of thugs attacked her at a small Tokyo diner, she thought she had no one left in this world to protect her. She was wrong. The man who stepped out of the shadows that night wasn't just any savior. He was the most feared Yakuza boss in Japan, and the husband she buried in her heart long ago. He let her grieve. He let her move on. He let her fall pregnant with another man's child. And now the very enemies who forced him to fake his death have discovered his greatest weakness, the woman he never stopped loving. Before I tell you what happens next, subscribe to this channel and comment where you're watching from, because trust me, this story is about to shatter everything you think you know about love, loyalty, and second chances. The morning light crept through the small apartment window. Hanamori pressed her hand against her lower back and took a slow breath. 6 months pregnant, still working, still standing. She looked at the picture frame on her nightstand. The photo inside showed a young man with kind eyes and a gentle smile. Kenji, her husband, the man she had lost 3 years ago. They told her he died in an accident, a fire at his workplace. No body recovered, just ashes and grief. She had mourned him for 2 years. Then slowly she started living again. She moved to a new part of the city, found work at a small diner, built a quiet life from the ruins of her old one. The baby wasn't planned, a brief relationship that ended before it really began. The father wanted nothing to do with her or the child. That was fine. She had survived worse. Hana splashed water on her face and studied herself in the mirror, dark circles under her eyes. Hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked tired. She felt tired, but she also saw something else in her reflection. Strength, the kind that comes from getting up every single day, even when everything hurts. The diner was busy by 7. Hana moved between tables with practiced ease, balancing plates and refilling coffee cups. Her feet ached, her back protested every step. But she smiled at the customers and remembered their orders without writing them down. "You should sit more," said Mr. Tanaka, the old man who came in every morning for toast and tea. He nodded at her belly. "That baby needs rest too." "I'll rest tonight," Hana promised. It was the same thing she said every day. The lunch rush hit hard. A group of young businessmen took the corner booth. They were loud, demanding. One of them snapped his fingers at her like she was a dog. Hana kept her expression neutral. She had dealt with worse. "3 beers, the leader said without looking up from his phone, "and make sure they're cold this time." "Of course," Hana replied. She brought their drinks quickly, set them down carefully, turned to leave. A hand grabbed her wrist. "Wait!" The man's grip tightened. His friends laughed. "You forgot to smile." Hana's heart beat faster. She kept her voice calm. "Please, let go of my arm. I'm a paying customer." He pulled her closer. His breath smelled like cigarettes. "I deserve better service." The diner went quiet. Other customers looked away. The manager, a thin man named Ito, pretended to check something in the back. Hana could feel the baby kick inside her, a reminder of why she needed this job, a reminder of why she couldn't afford trouble, but she had spent too many years being small, being quiet, being safe. "Let go," she said louder this time. "Now." The man's expression darkened. He stood up. He was taller than her, broader. His friends stopped laughing. "You think you can talk to me like that?" Hana didn't back down. "I think you need to leave." What happened next was fast. His hand moved. She tried to step back. Her heel caught on a chair leg. She fell. The impact sent pain through her side, through her belly. She curled around herself, protecting her child the only way she could. Someone screamed. Maybe it was her. Maybe it was someone else. Then darkness. Hana woke up in a hospital bed. White walls. Beeping machines. The smell of disinfectant. Her hands flew to her stomach. "The baby is fine." A nurse stood beside her. Middle-aged, kind face. She checked the monitors and made notes on a clipboard. "You had a bad fall," the nurse continued. "Some bruising. We want to keep you overnight for observation. But your little one is strong. Heartbeat is perfect." Tears rolled down Hana's cheeks, relief so deep it felt like drowning. "The man who hurt you," the nurse said carefully, "was taken by the police. There were witnesses. He won't bother you again." Hana nodded. She didn't trust her voice. The nurse hesitated at the door. "Someone paid your medical bills. In full. They didn't leave a name." What? I thought you should know. The nurse smiled softly. Someone is looking out for you. After she left, Hana lay still and stared at the ceiling. She had no family, no close friends, no one with that kind of money. Who would do this? She fell asleep with the question unanswered. Across the city, in a house that looked like a fortress, Kenji Sato stood at his window and watched the rain fall. He had received the call an hour ago. His men had eyes everywhere. They had seen the incident at the diner. They had seen the pregnant woman fall. They had handled the situation, but they had also sent him a photo. He held his phone now, looked at the screen, looked at her face. Hana, his wife. The woman he had given up 3 years ago to protect her from his world. He had staged his own death, cut all ties, watched from the shadows as she mourned him, healed, and slowly rebuilt her life. He had told himself it was the right thing, the only way to keep her safe. But seeing her now, pregnant, hurt, alone, shattered something inside him. Sir? Ryo Tanaka stepped into the room. He was Kenji's most trusted man. Loyal, quiet. He had been there from the beginning. I need to know everything, Kenji said. His voice was steady. His hands were not. The pregnancy, the father, her living situation, everything. Ryo nodded. He didn't ask questions. He never did. After he left, Kenji looked at the photo again. Hana's face was thinner than he remembered, tired, but still beautiful, still strong. She had survived losing him. She would probably survive this too. She didn't need him, but he needed her. The door to his study opened again. This time a small figure appeared. Aiko, his daughter, 7 years old with her mother's eyes and her father's silence. Aiko's mother had died during childbirth. Kenji had raised her alone, with help from Mrs. Nakamura and the household staff. She was a quiet child, watchful. She spoke more through drawings than words. Now she padded across the room in her pajamas and stood beside him at the window. Couldn't sleep? Kenji asked. Aiko shook her head. She looked up at him with serious eyes. Then she pointed at the phone in his hand. He showed her the photo. This is someone I knew a long time ago, he said softly. She's hurt. I want to help her. Aiko studied the image. Then she looked at her father. Is she nice? Kenji felt something shift in his chest. A memory surfaced. Hana in the kitchen of their tiny apartment, humming while she cooked. Hana laughing at his terrible jokes. Hana holding his face in her hands and telling him he was more than his family's legacy. Yes, he said. She's very nice. Aiko nodded. She took his free hand in hers, squeezed it once. Then she went back to bed. Kenji stood alone in the quiet room. The rain continued to fall. Somewhere across the city, Hana slept in a hospital bed, unaware that her past was closer than she knew. He made a decision. He would not reveal himself. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The reasons he had left were still valid. His world was dangerous. His enemies were ruthless. Loving him had almost destroyed her once, but he could protect her from the shadows. He could make sure she had everything she needed. He could watch over her without being seen. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was all he could allow himself to give. He pressed his forehead against the cold glass and whispered into the darkness, I'm sorry, Hana. I'm so sorry. Outside, the city slept, and the rain kept falling. Hana left the hospital the next morning. The nurse gave her papers to sign and instructions to rest. She nodded at everything but thought about her job, her rent, her savings account that held almost nothing. The walk home felt longer than usual. Her side ached where she had fallen. Each step reminded her of the floor rushing up to meet her, of hands that grabbed instead of helped. She climbed the stairs to her apartment slowly. 3 floors, no elevator. By the time she reached her door, she was breathing hard. Something was different. A paper bag sat on her doormat. Inside she found groceries, fresh vegetables, rice, eggs, a container of miso soup that was still warm. No note, no explanation. Hana looked up and down the hallway. Empty, silent. She carried the bag inside and set it on her small kitchen counter. Her hands trembled as she unpacked each item. Someone knew where she lived. Someone was watching her. The thought should have scared her. Instead, she felt something else. Something close to comfort. She ate the soup for dinner. It tasted like the kind her grandmother used to make. Rich and savory. Like home. That night, she slept better than she had in months. 3 days passed. Each morning, Hana found something new outside her door. A blanket, soft and warm. A book of baby names with a yellow ribbon marking the first page. A small envelope with enough cash to cover her rent for 2 months. She tried to stay awake one night, sat by the door with a cup of tea listening for footsteps, but exhaustion won. She woke up on her couch with a crick in her neck and another gift waiting outside. This time, a note came with it. You don't have to work. Rest. Heal. Everything is taken care of. The handwriting was neat, careful, familiar in a way she couldn't explain. Hannah pressed the paper to her chest. Tears burned her eyes. She didn't understand what was happening, but for the first time in years, she didn't feel alone. A week later, she returned to the diner. Mr. Ito, the manager, barely looked at her when she walked in. His face was pale. His hands fidgeted with a dish rag. "You're back," he said flatly. "I need to work." "No." He shook his head too quickly. "I mean, we don't need you anymore. Business is slow. I had to make cuts." Hannah stared at him. The diner was full. Every table had customers. The other waitresses moved quickly between orders. "You're firing me." "I'm sorry." He didn't sound sorry. He sounded scared. "Please, just go." She wanted to argue, to demand answers, but she saw something in his eyes that stopped her. Fear, the kind that came from threats, not business decisions. Someone had made him do this. Hannah walked out without another word. She stood on the sidewalk and watched the city move around her. Cars, people, life continuing like nothing had changed, but everything had changed. She just didn't know why. The answer came that afternoon. She was sitting in a park near her apartment, feeding breadcrumbs to pigeons, when a black car pulled up to the curb. It was expensive, clean, the kind of car that didn't belong in her neighborhood. A man stepped out, tall, lean, maybe late 30s. He wore a dark suit and moved with the quiet confidence of someone used to being obeyed. "Mrs. Mori?" Hannah's heart skipped. No one had called her that in 3 years. She had gone back to her maiden name after Kenji died. Had tried to leave that life behind. "Who are you?" "My name is Ryo Tanaka." He bowed slightly. "I work for someone who wishes to help you." "I don't need help." "With respect, you do." His voice was calm, not threatening, almost gentle. "The man who hurt you at the diner has connections, dangerous ones. His family is powerful. They're angry about his arrest." Fear crept up Hannah's spine. She wrapped her arms around her belly. "What does that mean?" "It means you're not safe here." Ryo gestured to the car. "My employer has a home outside the city, private, secure. You would be protected there until things settle down. Why would anyone do that for me?" Ryo's expression flickered. Something passed through his eyes. Recognition, maybe, or sadness. "Because you matter to him," he said simply. "More than you know." Hannah should have refused, should have walked away and called the police and handled this herself like she handled everything else. But her baby kicked. A small reminder of everything she had to protect. "1 week," she said. "That's all. Then I figure out my own plan." Ryo nodded. If he felt any surprise, he didn't show it. 1 week. The estate was beautiful. Traditional Japanese architecture surrounded by gardens, stone paths, koi ponds, cherry trees that would bloom pink in spring. Hannah felt out of place. She owned 3 pairs of shoes. This house probably had rooms she would never see. A woman met her at the entrance. Older, warm smile, grey hair pinned neatly back. "Welcome. I'm Mrs. Nakamura." She took Hannah's small bag without asking. "Your room is ready. Are you hungry? Tired? Both?" "Both," Hannah admitted. Mrs. Nakamura laughed softly. "Then we'll feed you first and let you sleep second. That's always the right order." The kitchen was enormous. Copper pots hung from the ceiling. Something wonderful simmered on the stove. Hannah sat at a wooden table and ate the best meal she'd had in months. Fresh fish, pickled vegetables, rice so perfectly cooked each grain separated on her tongue. "This is incredible," she said. "Cooking is love," Mrs. Nakamura replied. "When you feed someone well, you tell them they matter." The words settled in Hannah's chest, made a home there. After dinner, Mrs. Nakamura led her to a bedroom on the 2nd floor, soft futon, clean linens, a window that looked out over the garden. "Rest now," the older woman said. "Tomorrow you can explore, but tonight, just rest." Hannah wanted to ask questions about her mysterious protector, about this house, about why any of this was happening, but exhaustion pulled at her like a tide. She lay down, closed her eyes, and slept. She woke to the sound of small footsteps. Morning light filled the room. Hannah blinked and pushed herself up. A child stood in the doorway. A girl, maybe 7 years old, dark hair cut straight across her forehead, eyes that seemed to look right through you. They stared at each other for a long moment. "Hi," Hannah said softly. "I'm Hannah. What's your name?" The girl didn't answer. Instead, she walked slowly into the room. She carried something in her hands, a piece of paper. She stopped at the edge of the futon and held out the paper. Hannah took it. A drawing. Crayon lines showed a woman with a round belly standing in a garden. Flowers surrounded her. A sun with a smiling face shone overhead. "Is this me?" The girl nodded. "It's beautiful." Hannah felt her eyes sting. "Thank you." The smallest smile crossed the child's face. Then she turned and walked away, footsteps silent on the wooden floor. Hannah looked at the drawing for a long time, at the care in each line, at the colors chosen just so. Whoever lived in this house, they had raised a kind child. That told her something important. She didn't see the master of the house that day, or the next. Mrs. Nakamura brought meals. The little girl, Aiko, she learned, left drawings under her door each morning. Rio checked in once to ask if she needed anything, but the owner remained invisible. On the third night, Hannah couldn't sleep. She walked through the quiet house, her bare feet cold on the floor. She found herself in a room lined with books, a study of some kind, elegant but lived in. A photo sat on the desk. She picked it up, looked at it. Her heart stopped. The photo showed a young man in a garden. He was laughing at something off camera. His eyes crinkled at the corners. He looked happy, alive. Kenji, her husband, the man she had buried in her heart 3 years ago. "Hannah." The voice came from behind her. Deep, familiar, impossible. She turned slowly. The room seemed to spin. He stood in the doorway, older now, harder around the edges, but unmistakably him. "Kenji," her voice broke. "You're dead. You died. I'm sorry." His voice was thick. "I'm so sorry." The photo slipped from her fingers. It hit the floor with a sound like a heartbeat. She had 1,000 questions, 1,000 years of grief pressing against her chest, but all she could do was stare at the ghost of the man she had loved, the man she had lost, the man who was somehow impossibly standing in front of her now, alive. The silence between them stretched like a wire pulled too tight. Hannah's legs felt weak. She reached for the desk to steady herself. Kenji took a step forward. "Let me explain." "Don't." The word came out sharp, broken. "Don't come near me." He stopped. His hands fell to his sides. She could see the pain in his eyes, the years of it. But she couldn't feel sorry for him. Not yet. Maybe not ever. 3 years. Her voice shook. "I mourned you for 3 years. I couldn't eat. Couldn't sleep. I thought I would die from the grief. Hannah." I put flowers on an empty grave. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I talked to a headstone. I told it about my day. About how much I missed you. About how I didn't know how to live without you. Kenji's face crumpled. For a moment he looked like the young man she had married. Gentle, vulnerable, human. Then his expression hardened again. A mask sliding back into place. "I had to protect you," he said. "My family, the business, it's not what I told you. It never was." "What does that mean?" He was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke. "I'm Yakuza, the head of a family that controls half of Tokyo. My father built this empire, his father before him. I was born into it. I tried to leave, to be normal, to be the man you thought I was." Hannah remembered their tiny apartment. Kenji working late at what he called an import business. The way he never talked about his family. The way he always seemed to be looking over his shoulder. "I fell in love with you," he continued. "Real love. The kind that makes you stupid. I thought I could have both lives, the one with you and the one I was born into. What happened? A rival family found out about you. They planned to use you against me, hurt you to hurt me." His voice dropped low. "The only way to keep you safe was to disappear, to make everyone believe I was dead. Even you." The words hit her like stones. Each one left a bruise. "So you let me suffer," she whispered. "To protect me." "Yes. And you watched me. All this time. You watched me rebuild my life, find a new apartment, start over." He nodded slowly. The shame in his eyes was real. She could see that much. "I saw you smile again," he said. "I saw you laugh with customers at the diner. I saw you start to heal. I told myself it was enough, that you were happy, that I made the right choice. Then why am I here now? Kenji's jaw tightened. Because the man who hurt you at the diner is Daiichi Kuroda's nephew. Kuroda leads the family that threatened you 3 years ago. He's been waiting for a chance to strike at me. When his nephew was arrested because of you, he started asking questions. Fear crawled through Hana's chest. He knows about me? He knows a pregnant woman stood up to his nephew. He doesn't know who you are. Not yet. Kenji met her eyes. But if he finds out you were my wife, that I faked my death to protect you, he'll use that. He'll use you. Hana pressed her hands to her belly. The baby kicked, a small reminder of everything at stake. So what happens now? You stay here, where it's safe. My men will handle Kuroda. Once the threat is gone, you can go back to your life. I'll disappear again. You'll never have to see me. The words should have brought relief. Instead, they brought something else. Something that felt dangerously close to disappointment. And if I don't want to stay, Kenji's expression softened, then you walk out that door. I won't stop you. I've already taken too many choices from you. She stared at him, at this man who was both stranger and husband, monster and protector, the person who had shattered her heart and the person trying to piece it back together. I need time, she said finally. I don't know how to feel about any of this. Take all the time you need. He stepped back, creating distance, giving her space. Mrs. Nakamura will take care of you. Aiko likes you. You're safe here. That's all that matters. He turned to leave. Kenji. He stopped, didn't turn around. The gifts at my apartment, the groceries, the money, that was you? Yes. The soup tasted like my grandmother's recipe. A long pause. I remembered how much you loved it. She taught me how to make it, before the wedding. She wanted me to take care of you. The memory surfaced. Her grandmother in a tiny kitchen. Kenji beside her laughing as he stirred the pot, both of them covered in flour from the dumplings they had tried to make. Hana closed her eyes. The tears came harder now. When she opened them again, Kenji was gone. The next few days passed in a strange fog. Hana stayed in her room mostly. Mrs. Nakamura brought meals. The older woman never pushed, never asked questions. She just provided quiet comfort and warm food. Aiko continued to leave drawings. Each one showed something new. A cat sleeping in sunlight, a flower blooming, 2 figures standing side by side, one tall and one short. On the 4th morning, Hana found the courage to leave her room. She walked through the house and found the garden. It was beautiful. Stone pathways wound between carefully trimmed bushes. A small pond held fat koi fish that swam in lazy circles. Cherry trees stood bare, but promised pink blossoms in spring. Aiko sat on a bench near the pond. She had a sketchbook in her lap, colored pencils spread out beside her. Hana approached slowly. May I sit with you? Aiko looked up, nodded once, then returned to her drawing. They sat together in comfortable silence. The morning air was cool but pleasant. Birds sang somewhere nearby. Your drawings are wonderful, Hana said after a while. You have a real gift. Aiko didn't respond, but her pencil moved faster. More confident strokes. I used to draw too, when I was your age. Mostly flowers. I wasn't very good. The smallest smile crossed Aiko's face. Can I ask you something? Hana kept her voice gentle. Why don't you talk? Aiko's hand stilled. She stared at the pond for a long moment. Then she pointed at her heart, then at her mouth. She shook her head. The words get stuck? A nod. That's okay. Hana reached out slowly, gave Aiko time to pull away. When she didn't, Hana rested her hand on the girl's shoulder. Sometimes, feelings are too big for words. That's what art is for. Aiko leaned slightly into the touch, just for a moment. Then she returned to her drawing. An hour later, she finished. She tore the page from her sketchbook and handed it to Hana. The drawing showed 3 figures, a tall man, a small girl, and a woman with a round belly. They stood together in a garden. The sun smiled down at them. Hana's throat tightened. Is this what you want? She asked softly. For us to be together, like a family. Aiko's eyes were serious, hopeful. She nodded. I don't know if that's possible, sweetheart. Aiko pointed at the drawing again, at the woman's face. She had drawn it with extra care, every line gentle, every color soft. Then she pointed at Hana, at her face, at her eyes. She pressed a hand to her own heart. then reached out and pressed it to Hana's. The gesture needed no words. That evening, Hana found Kenji in the kitchen. He stood at the stove, stirring something in a pot. He wore simple clothes, no suit, no armor, just a man cooking dinner. He looked up when she entered. Surprise flickered across his face. Then something softer. Hungry? She nodded, sat at the table, watched him work. Aiko showed me her drawings, she said. She draws constantly. It's how she processes the world. What happened to her mother? Kenji's hand paused on the spoon. She died, giving birth to Aiko. There were complications. The doctors couldn't save her. I'm sorry. Her name was Yuki. She was kind, patient, a good person. He resumed, stirring. I married her for the wrong reasons. Alliance, duty. But I tried to love her. I think she knew. Knew what? That my heart was somewhere else. He looked at her. With someone who thought I was dead. Hana didn't know what to say to that. He served the food. Simple rice and vegetables, nothing fancy. They ate in silence for a while. I don't forgive you, she said finally. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I know, but I understand, a little, why you did what you did. He set down his chopsticks. That's more than I deserve. Probably. She almost smiled. I'm still angry. You should be. I'm also tired, and pregnant, and terrified about what happens next. She met his eyes. But I don't want to hide in my room anymore. I want to, I don't know, try to be here, whatever that means. Something shifted in Kenji's expression. Hope, maybe. Carefully contained. Afraid to grow. Whatever you need, he said. I'm here. The words hung between them. A promise. An offering. Before she could respond, Rio appeared in the doorway. His face was tense, his jaw tight. Sir, we have a problem. Kenji stood immediately. The gentle man from a moment ago vanished. In his place stood someone harder, more dangerous. What is it? Rio glanced at Hana, then back at Kenji. Kuroda knows. About her. About everything. He paused. He's sent a message. He wants to meet. Tomorrow night. The kitchen went cold. Hana felt the baby kick. A sharp reminder of everything she had to lose. Kenji's hands curled into fists at his sides. What does the message say? Rio's voice dropped low. He says he has questions. About a ghost, and the woman the ghost loves. Silence. Heavy and thick. Kenji turned to Hana. His eyes were dark, determined. I won't let him touch you, he said. Either of you. I swear it. She wanted to believe him. Wanted to trust that this man, this stranger who was also her husband, could keep that promise. But fear whispered in her ear, reminded her of all the things that could go wrong. She placed her hand on her belly, felt the heartbeat beneath her skin. Just come back, she whispered. Whatever happens, just come back. Kenji crossed the room, stopped in front of her. Slowly, carefully, he reached out. His fingers brushed against her cheek, gentle, reverent. I will, he said. I promise. Then he was gone, and Hana was left alone with her fear and her hope, and the tiny life growing inside her. The night stretched long and sleepless. Hana sat by the window in her room, watching the darkness beyond the glass. Every sound made her jump. Every shadow seemed to move. Mrs. Nakamura brought tea around midnight. She didn't say anything, just sat beside Hana and held her hand. He'll come back, the older woman said finally. He always does. How long have you known him? Since he was a boy. Mrs. Nakamura's eyes grew distant. I watched him grow up in this house. Watched him become the man his father wanted. Watched him fight against it. Watched him lose. Did you know about me? I knew there was someone. Before Yuki. Someone who made him smile in a way I'd never seen. She squeezed Hana's hand. When he came back after faking his death, he was different. Hollow. Like he'd left the best part of himself behind. Hana closed her eyes. The weight of those words pressed against her chest. He made a terrible choice, Mrs. Nakamura continued. But he made it for the right reasons. That doesn't fix anything, but it matters. Does it? Only you can answer that. They sat together until the tea grew cold. Then Mrs. Nakamura left, and Hana was alone again with her thoughts. Morning came grey and quiet. Hana must have dozed off in the chair because she woke to pale light and stiff muscles. She found Aiko in the kitchen eating breakfast. The girl looked up when Hana entered. Her eyes were worried. She pushed a drawing across the table. It showed a man standing in front of two figures, a woman and a child. The man's arms were spread wide, like he was protecting them from something dark at the edge of the paper. "He's brave," Hana said softly. "Your father." Aiko nodded. She reached across the table and took Hana's hand. Her small fingers were warm, steady. They waited together. The call came at noon. Rio appeared in the doorway, phone pressed to his ear. His face was unreadable. He spoke in short, clipped sentences. Then he hung up. "It's over," he said. Hana stood so fast her chair scraped against the floor. "What happened? Is he—" "He's fine. Minor injuries. Nothing serious." Rio's expression softened slightly. "Kuroda has agreed to stand down. The threat is neutralized." "How?" Rio hesitated. "There was a meeting. Words were exchanged. An understanding was reached." "That's not an answer. It's the only answer I can give." His voice was gentle but firm. "Some things are better left unknown. What matters is that you're safe now. Both of you." Hana wanted to argue, wanted details, wanted to understand exactly what had happened in those dark hours. But she also understood something else. Some knowledge came with a price, and maybe just this once she didn't need to pay it. "When will he be home?" "Soon. He wanted to see you first, before anything else." The words settled in her chest, warm, unexpected. Kenji arrived an hour later. He walked through the front door slowly, like each step cost him something. His suit was wrinkled. A bruise darkened his jaw. His knuckles were scraped and raw, but his eyes found hers immediately. And in them she saw something she hadn't expected. Relief, pure and overwhelming. Aiko ran to him first. She wrapped her arms around his waist and pressed her face against his chest. He held her close, one hand smoothing her hair. "I'm okay," he murmured. "I promised, didn't I?" Aiko looked up at him, then at Hana, then back at her father. She took his hand and pulled him forward, toward the woman standing frozen by the kitchen door. Kenji stopped in front of Hana, close enough to touch, close enough to see the exhaustion carved into every line of his face. "It's done," he said. "Kuroda won't come after you. He knows the cost now. He won't pay it." "What did you do?" "I reminded him who I am, what I'm capable of, what I'll do to protect the people I love." His voice was steady, no pride in it, just truth. "He believed me." Hana searched his face, looking for the monster she should fear, the killer everyone said he was. But all she saw was a tired man who had spent the night fighting for her, for the baby she carried, for a family he didn't even know he could have. "You should rest," she said finally. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe, or gratitude. "I will. Soon." He reached up slowly, gave her time to pull away. When she didn't, his fingers brushed against her cheek. "I needed to see you first, to know you were okay." "I'm okay." Her voice cracked slightly. "We both are." His hand moved lower, hovered over her belly, a question in his eyes. She took his hand and pressed it against the swell of her stomach, held it there. The baby kicked. Kenji's breath caught. His eyes went wide. For a moment, he looked like a boy seeing snow for the first time. "Strong," he whispered. "Like the mother." Hana laughed. The sound surprised her. It had been so long since she'd laughed, really laughed. "Go rest," she said again. "I'll be here when you wake up." He held her gaze for a long moment. Then he nodded, turned, walked toward his room with slow, heavy steps. Aiko watched him go. Then she looked at Hana, a question in her eyes. Hana opened her arms. The girl walked into them without hesitation. They held each other in the quiet kitchen. Two people who had both known loss, both known fear, both learning what it meant to hope again. The weeks that followed were gentle, quiet, healing. Hana stopped thinking about leaving. The guest room became her room. Her things appeared, clothes that fit her growing belly, books she mentioned loving, small comforts that showed up without explanation. She and Kenji circled each other carefully at first. Polite, cautious, two people learning to share space after years apart. But slowly the walls came down. They ate dinner together every night, sometimes with Aiko, sometimes alone. They talked about small things, the weather, the garden, a movie Mrs. Nakamura had recommended. And sometimes, late at night, they talked about bigger things. He told her about his childhood, the father who demanded perfection, the mother who died too young, the weight of a legacy he never asked for. She told him about the years after his death, the grief that nearly drowned her, the slow, painful process of learning to breathe again. They didn't touch much. Not yet. But sometimes their hands would brush while passing dishes. Sometimes they would sit close enough that their shoulders touched. Sometimes he would look at her with such tenderness that she forgot to breathe. "I'm not the same person," she said one evening. They sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky orange and pink. "The woman you married, she's gone." "I know." He didn't look away. "I'm not the same either. We've both been broken and rebuilt. Does that bother you?" "No." His voice was soft, certain. "I don't want the woman I married. I want the woman you've become. If she'll have me." Hannah's heart beat faster. She looked at this man, this complicated, dangerous, gentle man. "I'm having another man's baby," she said. "That doesn't change anything for you. The baby is yours. That makes them mine too, if you'll let me." She thought about all the reasons to say no. The lies, the years of grief, the danger that would always surround him. Then she thought about Aiko's drawings, Mrs. Nakamura's kindness. The way Kenji looked at her like she was something precious, something worth protecting. "I'll let you," she whispered, "if you promise me something. Anything. No more lies, no more secrets. Whatever comes, we face it together." He took her hand, brought it to his lips, kissed her knuckles softly. "Together," he agreed. "Always." The baby came on a spring morning. Cherry blossoms drifted past the hospital window like pink snow. Hannah held her daughter for the first time. Tiny fingers, dark hair, eyes that blinked up at her with sleepy wonder. "She's perfect," Kenji said. He stood beside the bed, Aiko on his hip. His voice was thick with emotion. "Absolutely perfect." "Does she have a name?" Aiko asked. Her first words in months. Everyone stared. Hannah smiled through her tears. "I was thinking Sakura, for the cherry blossoms." Aiko considered this seriously. Then she nodded. "Sakura is good. Can I hold her?" They arranged themselves carefully. Kenji sat on the bed, Aiko in his lap, Sakura cradled in the girl's small arms. Mrs. Nakamura appeared at the door. She took one look at the scene and started crying. Happy tears, the best kind. "A family," she said, dabbing at her eyes. "A real family." Hannah looked at them all. The daughter she had just met, the daughter she had come to love, the husband she had lost and found again. It wasn't the life she had planned. It wasn't the life she had expected, but it was hers, and it was beautiful. A year later, they stood in the garden. Sakura took her first steps on the stone path, wobbling toward her father's outstretched hands. Aiko drew pictures on a blanket nearby, her sketchbook full of flowers and faces. Hannah watched them, her family, her home, her heart. Kenji caught Sakura as she tumbled forward. He lifted her high, making her giggle. Then he looked at Hannah, smiled. "What are you thinking?" he asked. She thought about everything that had brought them here. The pain, the loss, the impossible second chance. "I'm thinking I'm happy," she said. "Really, truly happy." He walked over to her, Sakura on one hip. His free hand found hers. "So am I," he said. "For the first time in my life, so am I." They stood together in the spring sunshine. The cherry blossoms fell around them like promises, like hope, like love made visible. And somewhere inside, where only she could feel it, Hannah knew this was exactly where she was meant to be. Home.